The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Is it my story, your story, his story, her story, Jane's story, Joe's story? Is it just an allegory? The show's about to start and we still don't have a name for it. Bop, 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 bop. It's a long story.
Aging and cystic fibrosis are words you don't always hear in the same sentence, but on this podcast, you'll hear them all the time, with relevant discussions and unexpected explorations wherever this podcast might take us.
So many people with CF are living longer thanks to modulators and medical advances. We thought it was time to get into some real conversations with expert guests and people from all walks of CF about what living longer with CF means, the good and the not so good.
I'm Dr. Ahmet Uluer.
And I'm Lauren Harvey.
I'm a medicine and pediatric trained pulmonologist and director of an adult CF center at a Harvard-affiliated hospital right here in Boston.
And I've had CF all my life and was recently diagnosed with CF-related diabetes. I am committed to creating a supportive space for those with CF and their loved ones.
I will bring the medical expertise and provider perspective.
I bring the real-life CF experience.
And together we bring you It's a Lung Story, a monthly podcast about aging with cystic fibrosis, where we take a little time to tell a lung story.
It's a long story.
Hello, and welcome to part 2 of CF Transplant Stories, 3 Women's Voices. The conversation between Tara, Beth, and Caleigh continues, and we're so glad you're here for it. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, hit pause and go back. It sets the stage for everything you're about to hear. We're beyond happy to bring you this continuing conversation between 3 lung transplant survivors, with 5 transplant surgeries between them and 38 bonus years of life lived and counting. I have so much I want to say right now. I was basically on the verge of either starting to cry or just wanting to go pummel some doors at some centers, because it's just alternatingly just heartbreaking and frustrating what we all on some level have to go through to get this surgery. And I went through a version, not what you went through, but of learning this center has this rules and it won't work with this center, but this center will work with this center, but it, isn't the center for me, and that's too far away, and this one you need to be able to, take a helicopter. I don't even know, because it's a donated organ, it's different than if you were just going to go in for a quadruple bypass. You wouldn't have to pass all these tests and do all this research, and it just seems sometimes so unfair that it's set up that way. And I think also that you have to learn on the job while you're not feeling well, while you're beyond that, you're desperate, scared, traumatized. So I just want to say I'm sorry that you had to go through all that. And it sounds like you had a good support network, which is huge, and I'm grateful for that for you. But I'm sure, Beth, you have your version, and I'm sorry for all of us that we have to go through that. And I just hope the system, at least at the level of working with centers, being able to work with other centers, gets better, because it's just such a tough thing to have to go through, and that we have to coordinate it.
I will add that on the provider side, it is also really frustrating, as we are strong advocates of our CF community, and how we want to also be able to be there. We want to, our lung transplant programs are part of they're our colleagues. We're all part of the same division. So it's sometimes hard to, not be able to advocate so that the transplant happens at your center, and you have to go elsewhere. And I will also say that ex vivo lung perfusion is the name of that preservation of lungs after they're explanted from a donor. They're usually good for a few hours, but this system that you're talking about, Caleigh, can preserve it for 18, 24 hours sometimes. So it does help with outcomes and being able to, transplant beyond certain hours and distances. Beth, did you have something you wanted to say too?
No, I mean, similarly, I was listed in 2 different regions. And it's funny because I just think a lot of people don't know, even in the CF community, until they're being listed and until they're on a list for a certain amount of time and then consider being listed at 2 centers, what the restrictions on their insurance might be, or to navigate if you're listed in a different region than where you live, how to navigate the cost and the actual physical travel. If you're in a different region than you're matched, how are you going to get there? And I was lucky enough to be on an angel flight list so that if I had been matched at the center outside my region, they would have flown me. But all of it is much more complicated, I think, than people realize in terms of the insurance approvals. Because it's not just that the center has to accept you as a patient, your insurance also has to agree that they're going to pay for basically the lifetime of your care, not just the surgery, but all of the meds moving forward. So that's another bar that you have to kind of clear. Yeah.
Beth, I know you've continued to work, which is incredible. I'm struggling with work right now a little bit, trying to find a remote job that fits me. So, I really look up to you for being able to work through everything, considering I have nothing like what you have going on. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you do for work and what that work means to you? How do you balance that passion with staying on top of your health and, add in some financial side too, if you want?
Sure. So what I do for work is now I'm full-time working in the professional theater world. For a long time, I balanced kind of 2 careers, one as a theater and arts professional, and then as a theater teacher and special ed teacher. So I kind of had two things going on until about 2 years ago, I made the decision to give up the classroom teaching part of my career for my health, basically. It was just too acutely difficult for my current health status to be in the classroom for 8 hours a day. But so I'm always this question is always very interesting to me because I have always continued to work, one, out of financial necessity, because I've lived independently. I've been single for a million years. I'm only recently, my boyfriend is moving in with me. And that's a very new, exciting part of my life. Yeah, very exciting. So I always had to support myself. And with that, I always had to have a job that had good health insurance that would be able to serve all of my needs. And so that was always a priority for me from the day I graduated college, was how to have a job that would pay for this life that we're all in, and to be able to be hospitalized for a week and not have a gigantic bill, and to be able to take our medications that are very, very expensive. So that was always a priority for me. But the other side of me continuing to work is that, my passion really is in the arts and in theater education and in bringing theater to families and to people with disabilities. And it's such a part of who I am and my identity that actually periods of time when I'm not working, I feel like my health actually suffers because I don't have that motivation. And part of my personality type is that when I don't have a schedule of things to do, it kind of all falls off the rails. So I'm better with my health management the busier I am with my work life, even though that seems like they would be in competition. It actually forces me to focus a little bit more. But I derive so much energy and joy from my work that I feel like it's actually better for my health to always be working in some capacity. Now, that's changed a lot over the years. It changed a lot in the year after my lung transplant and has changed a lot in these last 2 years leading up to what hopefully will be my pancreas kidney transplant. So I think work can look very different at different stages for people. And I just would encourage people that if you have a passion, keep that passion as part of your life. Because I think it might serve people a lot.
I was going to say that that's really important. It's like that balance, and with like disability and all these other things that go into it, Social Security. There's a lot of ways that can get complicated. And but I do feel like working and following your passion that's what you're transplanted for, in a way.
Yeah, and I do think the issue of disability and disability insurance is something that is another thing that's more complicated than people know. That, if you have a disability policy at your workplace, it may have provisions that you could keep working in some capacity and still receive a disability payment. It might not. It might have a provision that you could do a completely different type of work and still be covered by that disability policy. So you have to kind of know what you're getting into to keep yourself covered in the event that you absolutely can't work, or the event that you need to work incredibly part-time or in a completely different way than you used to work. I think that's really important for people to research and learn about. That's a whole nother episode, like you said.
That really is. That really is. And there will be.
Consider yourself booked.
Because this is something that we're always facing as we, discuss options with our, community members and what to do about jobs and taking care of themselves. So thank you so much, Beth, for that.
I think like navigating all of that in the States is mind-blowing for me, because it's completely different here in Canada, which again is a whole other episode. But like, kudos to you guys for having to navigate that on top of everything. I'm like listening and I'm like mind blown. So
we love to make things complicated here. Tara, I'm going to shift to you. You volunteered. Perfect. You're the president of your local chapter in Canada, advocating for CF. You're part of many organizations. Can you, and I know you also follow Caleigh and Fight to Breathe and her advocacy work. So everyone's doing this amazing work. But tell us what exactly you're doing, what you're doing with it, and why it matters so much to you and the transplant community.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to start. I've messed up Caleigh's name this whole time. I was so worried I was going to say it wrong, and I've been saying it wrong, so I'm sorry. So to answer your question, I didn't know anybody with CF before my transplant. It never occurred to me to like reach out and meet other people because I was so healthy and air quote normal. So when I got my first double lung transplant, I'm from a small town and of like 70,000 people. And it was big news that someone got a double lung transplant. So that kind of blew up. And just in trying to keep people updated with appointments and surgery and all of that, my dad was posting on his Facebook. And this is 13 years ago now. So everybody had to add my dad as a friend on Facebook to get updates, because we weren't calling everybody, and, so-and-so would be in charge of calling grandma. And anyway, so it kind of snowballed from that. So my friends didn't have to have my dad on Facebook because that was not cool at the time. I started my Facebook page initially as helping Tara breathe easy. And that was kind of the campaign for my transplant. And the community kind of grew from there. I had other people reach out saying, hey, I have CF and I've had transplant too. Or, hey, I live in the same city as you. I have CF. And everything just kind of started with that. I was asked to share my story for the first time from CF Canada. And they wanted me to speak at an event called Shinerama, which is a post-secondary school fundraiser that's big in Canada. I'm not sure if it's in the States or not, but it was essentially weird for me to think that like I had a story to tell, because I was just going to get up and tell my life story. But I spoke to a bunch of university students first thing in the morning after they'd had a karaoke night at a conference, and the attention that they gave me, and like there were people crying, there were people hugging me afterwards. It was sort of surreal for me to think that like my life story impacted people that way, because it would be no different than me saying to you like, hey, tell me, your history from JK till now. And the keynote speaker at that event came up to me afterwards and said, you are a natural. You need to keep speaking and share your story because it's important. So it took a while for me to kind of shift out of that. Like, it was almost imposter syndrome of people are interested in me. Like, my choice was do or die, literally, like get lungs or I would no longer exist. So I started with CF Canada, and then I got interested in talking about organ donation with Trillium Gift of Life. And I did part of their Be a Donor campaign. I went out to different businesses and schools and events and just talked about organ donation because it is something that had never crossed my mind until I was told I needed a transplant. Like, I had seen it on Grey's Anatomy, but it never was brought up as a conversation to me, like in school, in science class, or at home. When you got your driver's license at 16, they asked if you want to be an organ donor. And you're like, sure, whatever. And like, you don't really think about it, or people don't check it because you don't have to send that form in to have your license. So the fact that even myself, with that being a treatment option for CF, was something I had never thought of until I needed it. Like, I wanted to do something about that. So we got some campaigns going with that, and it really has just evolved. And it was perfect for when I was in rejection, and I called it my limbo land life. So I wasn't sick enough to relist for lungs, but I was too sick to be, working full time or going to school or doing anything, what I called to be like a productive member of society. So I started giving these speeches, and some of them were paid depending on where I was going. And it blew my mind that I was paid to talk about myself. And I joked that my mom always said, I was birthed and came out talking, and now I'm getting paid to do it. So joke's on her. But it's just become this big thing that I transitioned my Facebook page over to be it's now called Alive with Every Breath. And that's all of my socials. Just because I needed the second transplant, and I tried to come up with a slogan that would be applicable to transplant and CF and just the time in between. Like, I'm sharing that, I walked my dogs today, or I'm nannying another family of twins because I seem to be the baby whisperer for twins. And just, I wanted to show like the behind the scenes of CF and share that, as well as the advocacy for what CF is. And with all the modulator treatments coming out, how in Canada, if you're post-transplant, you're not allowed to be on the modulators. Be allowed is not the right phrase for that. But so just kind of like sharing my story and being very open with it was started off with just getting my dad out of all my friend lives. And then it became therapeutic for me, almost like a journal. And I've kept track of my whole medical life that way, and then just regular life. And it's really built up a huge community of CF and transplant people that I am really grateful to have. And there are times where I have to step back and just say, like, I can't handle any more sickness or any more loss and death right now. So it's a balance, but I like that it is done through my page, in that it's kind of separate. I have like my own personal Facebook and stuff like that you can kind of navigate between. And it's really kind of opened a lot of doors for me with work now that I'm working as an admin for a real estate agency, and just getting to know people and getting the word out. And locally, my hometown of Sarnia improved their organ donor registry rate by over 40% when we ran a campaign locally. So I'll be the first to say I was just as ignorant and naive about transplant and organ donation and everything as the next person. And I needed one. So it really just organically grew, and I've enjoyed it since then.
That's amazing. And I'm so glad you decided to do what you're doing, because you are changing lives. You are increasing to 40% people signing up to become organ donors. That's a huge, that is really the biggest, barrier often for people getting lung transplants. So congratulations. And
I know that there's one province that now has an opt-out program. Yeah. So everyone is a donor unless you want to opt out. And that's been interesting to see happen here in Canada. But
even better, yes. Absolutely.
My opinion, I love it. But
amazing. Well, thank you again. And then so I'm going to shift gears again and go back to Caleigh, who definitely, you don't look any shorter than 5'2". That's what I would have said. But you, me, so many people listening here share a love of travel. And my global health team recently had the privilege of being joined by a CF community member and a lung transplant recipient, Noor, little shout out, on an overseas trip. And our team witnessed the planning and preparation firsthand of what it takes to really be traveling around. And you are currently living in Europe. You describe yourself as a nomad. You talked about your husband being a logistics expert, and we've seen your Instagram page. We see the executive functioning, the skills that you must have. So, how do you combine your passion for travel and your ability to keep organized with everything that you need, following a lung transplant?
Well, I'll just echo a few things that Beth said previously about how goals shift when you go through transplant and just with age in general. And as you may think that you're fighting and the motivation behind getting a transplant and survival is one thing. So when I was fighting for a transplant, I had no idea that my life would be how it is today and I'd be able to do so many amazing things that I've done. I describe myself as a nomad because I truly became one in 2020 when COVID happened, and I felt like I was finally healthy after 12 years of fighting for my life. And I really wanted to find something, that was joyful and exciting. And so I began traveling. My mom was actually a travel agent growing up, and so I heard so many amazing stories. My husband always traveled with his friends in college and after college, and it was always their favorite memories were always stories of traveling and sharing connections with people from different cultures and also growing the relationships they already had. And I started to strive for that. I wanted to understand people from different places. I wanted to get out of my bubble and expand my perspective more. And, traveling was, I guess, something that sort of fell into our laps because of COVID and wildfires and things, but also was a goal and a decision because as life goes, it takes a lot of work to make these things happen. It takes a lot of work living with any disease, no matter how minor you may think it is or how major you may think it is. Everything is work. And so we started traveling in the van, and slowly we started going further and further and further from hospitals. It started out staying in cities where there was major hospitals to then being like 8 hours away from any sort of local hospital there was. And that came with confidence and preparation, which is always key, is preparing yourself, one, acknowledging the risks you're taking and accepting those risks and having ownership over those risks as well as your disease, which means preparing yourself, educating yourself on what may happen while you're gone and how to handle that. That means wherever I'm going, I'm always looking at where is the major CF center as well as a transplant center. And that's actually going to guide the way that I travel. As you can see, I still haven't been to Africa. I still haven't been to the Maldives. See, I don't even know because I haven't been there. But there's places that I'm still not willing to go right now because I don't feel comfortable. That said, I probably could because my husband is low-key my personal nurse and doctor. He learned how to access a port because we knew that my dios was basically the bottleneck to my travel and my health. And so if we were about to go live on a beach, I had a high likelihood of getting dehydrated. Okay, let's bring fluids. Let's bring D5 with us because I'm diabetic, so I'm going to need D5 to run. And we just learned all of these things and had really open and honest communication with doctors, which is also key. I feel a strong, relationship and bond to my team and being able to tell them, hey, I want to travel in a van. How do you feel about it? And they're like, well, we don't feel great about it because you're going to go out in nature and there's dirt and there's things, but we're not going to tell you no because technically you can do it. You just have to prepare yourself and do the research, understand what you're getting yourself into. And I was like, don't worry, if something happens and I get sick, The worst thing is we moved back into an apartment. I moved back to Los Angeles and I'm here. I'm not going to do anything that is just going to be completely putting myself at risk. I never would. That said, I've gone skydiving, I go snorkeling, I go freediving. There's lots of things I do with proper gear and people and stuff. But I think for anybody who wants to travel, definitely do your research on just if there's diseases you could get, if there's healthy resources for water, for clean food and water, hospitals, knowing your plan A, B, C, and D. How are you going to get out of somewhere? How long is it going to take? Where can you go to be stabilized to transfer to your main clinic is always key. Where you are, can they treat you for everything? If they can, great. If they can't, what are you going to do about it? Because you're actually the one who's going to have to do it. Of course, when you're hospitalized other places, they communicate with your doctors. But at the end of the day, you're really in charge. You're the one who's putting yourself, out there living in Spain, trying to speak Spanish. And I actually got the flu. I had to go to the hospital. I don't speak Spanish fluently yet. But one of the first things I did was I took courses for Spanish, and I just learned how to say my conditions, how to say I'm diabetic, I need sugar, I'll pay later, how to ask for help, how to tell a cab where to go and pronounce the hospital right and ask for the right team. There's a lot of things that you can do to basically set yourself up for success, and then just take it day by day. If stuff happens and there's, challenges along the way, don't get frustrated, don't quit, just take them head on, move past them, and then, make a decision from there.
So preparation is your power.
Yes, and of course my database of medicine and when to reorder and how to get in and all of these things.
Yeah, that is we should have a travel podcast to people.
Well, that's the list. That's for another podcast. That's for another episode.
Such useful, incredible, pragmatic information. So thank you so much. Lauren, let's introduce our next segment. This was amazing. We just learned so much from our guests, and now we want to pivot to something a little bit more fun. Go for it.
I know we've had, roller coaster of emotions. So, it would be fun for us to start with a little game of Two Truths and a Lie. And hopefully you all are prepared. So here are my three. I played on a D3 college tennis team for 2 years. I name all of my pets after Disney characters. And I've given some of my medical devices actual names.
Okay. Okay. I think they're all very believable, but I totally believe the naming the medical devices one. And I pretty much believe the tennis one because that's very specific. So I'm going to go with the Disney is the lie.
You actually got it right. I do have a naming theme. I name them after video game characters, though. So instead of Disney, it's video game characters, and my dog's name is Bowser.
All right. I like it.
Yeah, and then I'll go ahead and pass it on to Caleigh if you want to give us your three.
Wait, number one, I speak 2 languages fluently. Number 2, I once went skydiving after losing a game of backgammon to my husband. And number 3, 15 years ago, I stood on the nose of a dolphin as it swam through the ocean.
Okay, so 2 and 3 are actually believable because of I followed you for a while. I don't remember you talking about either of these things, but you're just the type of person that would do that stuff. So I'm going to say you probably speak like 5 languages fluently, and so I'm thinking number 1's the lie.
No, again, I can barely speak 1 fluently. So
Damn it.
Number 1's the lie. So you're right, it is the lie. I just speak 1
regular language,
pretty much fluently.
Okay.
Not another.
And such stakes for a backgammon game.
Yeah, right?
No,
I still can't even learn backgammon.
The winner got to pick whatever we did the next day.
Wow.
And so I was going to pick ATV, and he picked skydiving. So we went.
Wow.
It was a win-win.
What a power couple.
So now, Beth.
Okay, my 3 are 1, I met Big Poppy. 2, I'm just getting a puppy with my boyfriend, who's moving in. I'm very excited about that.
And thirdly, my friends think I'm a cat whisperer.
Okay. Well, you got too excited about number 2, so I feel like that one's the truth. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who Big Poppy is, but
He's a baseball player who's
Okay.
huge in Boston.
okay, so that
I
one's
didn't know either.
definitely true because it's a Boston reference. So I'm gonna guess number 3 is the lie.
You are wrong. The lie is that I am not getting a puppy with my boyfriend. Yeah, one day it will be the truth. Trust me.
Those are future plans.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so mine are I spent a week horseback riding at a dude ranch. I design and build furniture, or I was on the Boston University debate team.
Okay. I could see you being good at debate. You're a good speaker. And I know you're from Boston, so I think that's true. And now I'm torn between the dude ranch and the furniture. Because the dude ranch seems like it would be hilarious and fun. But now I'm trying to remember if I know what you do with your free time outside of, everything else you do. I am going to say that the furniture is the lie.
You are wrong.
Oh.
I was actually on the Boston University ski team.
Oh, not debate.
I was an alternate. And I only skied once. I was like this 100-pound girl with CF, but I was almost like the mascot. Anyway,
So my 3 things. I've been pulled on stage and sang to while at a concert. I have rappelled down the outside of City Hall in Toronto. And I was proposed to during a hot air balloon excursion.
Can you repeat the first one?
I've been pulled up on stage and sang to at a concert.
Okay. Whew. Maybe this is because I can't imagine doing this, but I was gonna say the lie is number 2, but it seems actually crazy that maybe you did do it, but just going down City Hall because I can't imagine. But you do anything for getting the word out, so maybe you did do it. But I'm gonna say that one's a lie. Number 2.
You are wrong. I'm sorry. The rappel was a Make-A-Wish fundraiser, actually.
Wow, that was like you went on
That's
your
awesome.
way.
Yeah. So
I love that.
the lie was I was proposed to on a helicopter excursion, not a hot air balloon.
Wow. Okay.
Over Niagara Falls. It was wonderful. And the concert was actually a band that has a song about CF. And they had reached out and pulled me up on stage and then sang their song. It's called 65 Roses by the Trews. Little shout out. So that was pretty neat.
I
wow.
love that. I'm gonna listen to that.
Very emotional, but it's about their band manager who had CF.
Oh.
It's a great song. But yeah, so that was
I need
a very
I
cool
need a link to that song.
experience.
That sounds amazing.
I'll share.
Yeah, we should do a podcast about that
Yeah.
song.
All right. So I'm the last one to go. Number 1, I like to paint murals. Number 2, I played Brutus in a community theater rendition of Julius Caesar last year. And I played the trumpet in jazz band in high school.
Okay, so I'm guessing, and the second 2 are both musical, so I feel like maybe they're both true, and both of those are past tense, like I played. And this one's like I like to paint. And just thinking of any of my doctors having time to do this when I know they're in the hospital like 24/7 seems crazy to me. So I hope you do get time to paint a mural, but that's going to be my guess as your lie.
That's false, although my wife would say it takes me a long time to paint a mural because of that. But no, I didn't. I would love to. I'd love to do community theater if at all possible one day. And so Beth, can you imagine that's one of my dreams?
I knew that was a lie, though,
that's
because I'm like,
a lie.
I would have
That's
heard
a
about
lie.
that.
Yeah, you would have been there.
I would have
You would have
directed
been
the
my
play.
coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sign me up, Beth.
Also, jazz band nerd, huh? What instrument?
Yeah. I also played trumpet in jazz band in
Wow.
high school.
There you go, trumpet.
Well, can I offer that Amit's dad was also a jazz musician? So
Oh,
He was.
Wow.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, no, he played the drums. and it was really good.
To like pulmonary at all? Just due to like blowing, like using your lungs to like blow the trumpet?
I never made the connection that it basically was like doing physio. I will not say I was good at it. Like hitting the high F was all but I wasn't amazing, but I did my job. But it definitely, like, many times I was in a coughing fit doing like middle of the performance, and I'd have to be like quiet, but
and
did my best.
Caleigh, it was a great question, and I would say I actually hesitated saying this, but like I just can't imagine what that spit valve looked like. But is that something that you dealt with? Because I mean,
mine was okay,
really?
actually.
Okay. I mean,
surprisingly,
okay.
I'd been learning to cough it out since I was little, so I could hold it in my mouth.
I mean, my spit
without
valve,
getting too graphic.
I'll get graphic with my spit valve. It was gross, but like, so I just was thinking, but maybe we cut this part out. I wasn't going to ask that question, but I just did. All right.
Anywho, moving along.
And we're moving on.
Keep it in.
Yeah, I don't want a reference in here of the Hawk 2 girl, because that's not.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're cutting that one for sure.
This is where Lauren goes, okay, let's keep it moving.
Keep it
because
moving.
Okay. Well, that was super fun, and I feel like I learned a lot, and I'm really sad that, I guessed wrong, but we'll move past that. So I'll pass it off to Ahmet to get us started into the last segment we're doing.
Well, what we're going to do here is that, we do a lot of references that Lauren doesn't understand. Like Andrea and I are both in our 50s. And so we reference things from the 70s and 80s.
And to put it in perspective, I just turned 25 like a month ago. So I don't know half the stuff they're talking about.
Yeah. Lauren was born in 2000, so it's always easy to remember her age. But so she doesn't understand when we bring up Mike Meyer and coffee talk. And so we thought we'd bring up a segment about, just dating, married life, family member, caregiver, spouse, discuss. But if you don't know, Mike Meyer, who's Canadian, right?
Canadian.
But we thought we'd have a little coffee talk segment. So dating, married life, family member, I'm verklempt. You guys talk.
I'll start us off if you want,
Do
quickly.
It. Yes.
So it was actually my second date with my husband that I had to tell him that I had CF because I was going to be going in the hospital for a tune-up the following week. So I was kind of forced into it. But I never really hid that I had CF from anybody, like at school or my friends or anything. So I was always very open about it. But on our first date, I hadn't just said anything because we were out watching the World Juniors hockey game, actually, Canada versus US. And so our second date, I was like, I have cystic fibrosis, which is like this genetic disorder, but it doesn't really impact me much because I'm a pretty healthy person with it, but I'm going to have to go in the hospital. And his response was, oh, I have cousins that are diabetic. And at first I was like, okay, not the same. But I was like, I get where you're coming from. This is the putting it together. He has cousins who have dealt with illness and stuff. So yeah, my first hospital stay was an hour away from where we lived. And him and a buddy actually drove up to come visit me in hospital. And that was when I was in grade 12. And we have been dating and engaged and now married since then. So it was kind of an easy introduction for me of a second date, do or die. That someone's going to stick with me or not.
I was going to say,
But,
I give a talk to the medical students and I bring someone with me from the CF community and they want to know all about her dating life. And that takes up 45 minutes of the hour. I don't know.
And mine is kind of quick and easy.
Yeah.
So the biggest issue for us was transitioning out of patient caregiver once I was healthy after transplant. And I got the all clear from my second transplant right in 2020 when COVID hit. So we then started doing a lot of individual therapy and couples therapy just to work through realizing the trauma we went through, understanding that previously we'd been in a caregiver and patient role, and how do you kind of step away from that and into a regular dating role without realizing we hadn't been regular dating. So that was just being very open and accepting help from CF clinic and other therapists and stuff. It's been extremely helpful for us. And during lockdown for COVID, and especially being like, immune compromised, we were in lockdown a lot longer than most people. It was kind of like a make or break moment, and we took our space and kind of did our work and came together, and onwards we went from there. So you just have to be really honest and open with yourself and trusting of each other, that, when they say they want to be there, they mean it. And when you ask for help, you're going to ask for it and not withhold your needs. And it's a balance, whether you have an illness in your relationship or not. So,
Beth and Caleigh, I feel like we need to hear from you guys too on this one.
Well, so dating in general and dating my husband, I will say, are two completely different experiences for me. I have always been really open about my disease all of my life. And I never have been like forced into sharing having cystic fibrosis with anybody, mainly because I'll go to a date and I'll just take my enzymes and be asked, what are those? And then I'll say something. But that's not to say, yes, there have been moments that I've tried to downplay or not be so honest about, what I'm dealing with. But when I met my husband, we met at a wedding, and he was dating somebody else, and I was in and out of a relationship for years, ongoing. And I had just gone through being in a coma and all of that medical trauma. And actually, my mom came with me. It was a childhood friend. And I hadn't spoken to her for many, many years. And she invited me to her wedding just by chance because we met up the week before. Her mom was sick and she wanted some advice about the medical system. And so we talked, and she invited me to her wedding, and my mom kind of brought me because I was, down. I wasn't being very social. I really didn't want to see anybody because I had no hair and I was really skinny and I was walking on a walker. And she came with me. I left the walker. I just went out there and we met. And he asked the usual questions: where are you from? What do you do? All those things. And it was always hard for me to not, say that I have a career, because as a young 20-year-old, not working is so rare. And it's like, what's wrong with you? And, all of these things. And I held so much value to work. And so I sort of just told him, I think at that time I was just getting through surviving, and I really didn't care about anyone else's opinion of me or what I was going through or anything. It was just me and my family, and that's really all I needed in life. And so I was just really open, and I told him, oh, can't you see? I pointed to my chest, and I was like, I had a double lung transplant. I have cystic fibrosis. I'm diabetic. I'm blah, 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 blah. And he's like, oh, okay. And then I showed him my Instagram, and I was like, cool, see you later. And later that night, we talked a little bit more. And at the end of the night, he literally told me he was going to marry me. And I laughed out of shock, I think. And also just I don't know if he's crazy or that's literally the hottest thing I've ever heard. I can't really tell right now.
Wow.
I was like, I'm getting stalker, or I'm going to be with this person for the rest of my life. And a month went on, and I was recovering from a surgery, and he thought I was playing hard to get because I would only text an hour a day when I wasn't vomiting or sleeping. And time went on, we started dating, and because I knew he was so serious about me, I was very, very open about things that I probably just naturally wouldn't have come up in a relationship so soon. I won't be able to have kids biologically, and I won't be able to carry a child. Is that okay with you? Go back and think about that. Consider yourself before you fall in and love with me more, because I want you to think about your needs and what you want in life, and not to adapt to what has to happen because of me, because I do care about you. And he just always said, I want to be with you. I love you, and we're partners in this. So we got to go into those phases of life together and make those decisions together. And I think that's most of all what I needed in a partner, was somebody that would be my partner and go through all of these ups and downs with me and encourage me along the way. And He did. And he was a strong, strong caregiver for me. He got me my second lungs. He's my hero. He got me into that second, center. He's been with me. But as you said, Tara, like the shift from patient caregiver to partners is really tough, especially because I felt like my husband is very by the book. Like, you have to take your meds at a T at this time, not a minute later. And I was just, recovering, trying to like not, have roid rage and do all these, like, blow off steam on him, do all these things. And also, I think he was a little bit afraid to break me, like hug me, kiss me, anything like that. It was almost like he had seen too much, and I was this fragile being, and we had just made it past like this benchmark and this milestone of a second transplant. And he didn't want to do anything that could like taint that future or hurt me. And so we really had to gain trust and have open communication, as you've said, and just take it day by day. And both our goals have shifted in life, but I think the most important thing is when you marry somebody, you're open-minded about the fact that as years and decades go on, both of us change into different people because that's life. And you just have to go into life changing together and accepting that person and really taking it moment by moment and enjoying those moments.
That's the perfect ending. Wrap it up. Love it.
I agree.
Both powerful.
Well said.
I do. I would like to add that I was like just nodding along while you guys were both talking. I didn't get married till I was 39. I had definitely some like, rough patches where it was like, difficult. Early dating was not so difficult. It was more like at that jumping off place of do we get more serious, where some relationships ended for me, and outwardly facing it was like, I'll just get back on the hobby horse. But there were some times where I was just like, maybe it's just not meant to happen for me. I met my husband online at the advent of online dating, because we've been together over 20 years now, and he was just sort of a different species, which I do think it takes that. And I will say that, like, we also, like, our biggest, thing that we run up against, and it's constant, is this shift between, you just get used to sort of being in a husband spouse role, and then something happens and you're caregiver patient, and it's not easy. And I think a lot of people do go through that. We're in therapy for it. I think we do maintenance therapy for it because it happens so frequently that we just constantly need a place to take it so that we don't put it on each other. And I would recommend that for anybody who's going through it, or to at least like kind of realize that's what's happening, because it can manifest in many different ways. And that shift back and forth can be confusing for the caregiver. They don't know when to stop and when you've had enough. And it can be hard for the the patient, because you need the help and you don't want to ask for it, or you're just like so wanting to be independent, or all those things. So I think, relationships, they're out there and they are plentiful, and there are tons of people who are, wanting to love each other. But I think when you have chronic illness, it takes more work than the average person. And I'm pretty sure my husband would agree with me. So anyway, I just wanted to say that to people out there listening, that if that's what you're feeling, you're not alone.
Very sage advice. Thank you, Andrea. I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. This was an incredible couple hours that we got to spend with each other. And I am really looking forward to sharing this with the community, and just really can't wait to stay in touch with all of you and follow the work that you're doing, and just really thank you for just being here and sharing your stories and all the intimate stuff that you just shared. Really, really amazing.
I do want to mention that we can find these guys on Instagram. Caleigh is at Fight to Breathe, as we discussed before, with a number 2 in between fight and breathe, and also at fighttobreathe.org. Beth, also on Instagram at BethPeters80, and at MaryElizabethPeters.com.
And it's actually .art. Somebody bought the .com out from under me, so I had to change.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, screw that.
Yeah. I agree.
And Tara, also on Instagram at Alive with Every Breath, and online at beadonor.ca/campaign/Tara-Borg, BOURQUE. Ladies, did I get anything wrong there or anything you'd like to add?
I'm on Facebook at the same name as my Instagram as well.
Facebook.
That's all.
Okay.
I'll just do a shameless plug if you haven't had enough of talking about CF and transplant on this podcast to jump
Shameless
over
plugs.
to our Fight to Breathe TO because there's going to be lots of CF voices on it.
Excellent.
I've reached out.
Can't wait. Can't wait to listen to that.
And our dedication to Rema, you can also find her at, this is kind of funny, it's long story short with an underscore in between the words. And you can find her and check out her story that she's thankfully on the other side of at this point. And at this point, I'm going to say, unless you guys want to sing our song, anyone? No?
I'll do it if you want.
Caleigh
if you
wants
need
to do
voices.
Kayla, do
All
it.
right.
I don't know
I
a good
forget what
one,
it
but,
is,
like,
but I'll sing it.
Sing us out.
Wait, but you have to
Well, I
say
forget
it
what
one
it
more time
is.
so I can know what it is.
It's a long story.
It's a long story.
Tara
Love it. It's a long story.
and Beth.
It's a long story.
All right, guys.
That was amazing.
Awesome.
I was in full
I guess
CF
we're gonna-
voice for that too. Just got all of that.
Love it.
Sexy and gravelly.
The clearer the better.
It's been fun, but what I'm going to say is until next time.
Get
Yeah.
a little older.
Live a little bolder.
We are working hard to provide meaningful information to a deserving CF community, information you won't find anywhere else. If you'd like to help us grow, we'd greatly appreciate it if you would follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you never miss an episode. Want to go all in? Leave us a rating and a review. It helps people find us and makes a big difference. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with a friend, family member, caregiver, or provider who might also want to hear it. This helps you, it helps them, and it helps us spread the word to those who need to hear it most. It's a Long Story is produced by me, Andrea Gavin Becker, and is hosted by Dr. Ahmet Uluer and Lauren Harvey. Additional editing and production support is provided by the team at Resonate Recordings. Until next time,
Get a little older.
Live a little bolder.